right, we are almost done with the skeleton. It is just time to learn the tarsal bones and the bones of the feet. So this is what the ankle looks like from the top and from the lateral side. So here's the fibula, the tibia, the medial malleolus, and notice that the inferior side of the tibia articulates with this topmost bone of the tarsals, which is called the talus. Okay, so these bones here that make up the ankle and the back of the foot, the posterior side of the foot, these are called the tarsal bones. And the fibula and the tibia both sit on top of these tarsal bones. All right, this is what your foot looks like in an x-ray. The biggest of the tarsal bones is called the calcaneum or the calcaneus. That's fine. And then we have the tarsal bones. Next to those we have the metatarsals, and then making the toes are the phalanges. That's exactly the same organization as we had in the hand, except it was carpal bones. You're right. Once you know the bones of the palm and the fingers, you know the bones of most of the foot and the toes. Oh, so great. Now, there is a medial and lateral longitudinal arch to the foot, so that when you step down, this arch can flatten a little bit, absorbing the weight of the body. All right, so this is kind of an odd way to look at the foot. We're looking from the top. This is the posterior side. This is the anterior. And imagine that the foot is sort of stuck out to the side so that the leg bones are to the side here. Okay, so here's the calcaneum, or calcaneus. There's the talus. Okay, and if we were looking at the real bones here, you would notice that the top of the talus is very, very smooth. It's an articular surface. Talus and tibia articulate together, and they both start with T. Yay. Okay, so talus, calcaneum. Then we have this bone here, navicular, that sits between the talus and this three bones here. So it articulates with one on one side and then three on the distal side. These all are called the cuneiform bones. Cuneiform means cone-shaped, and if you looked at these from, say, the front, you would notice that they're sort of cone-shaped like that, okay? So there's a medial, an intermediate, and a lateral cuneiform bone. Notice the lateral cuneiform bone is not on the lateral side of the foot. I know. That was a good idea. It's the lateral of the cuneiform bones, but it's in the middle of the foot. Like that's not helpful. Okay, so the medial one is in fact on the medial side of the foot. The intermediate is between the medial and lateral cuneiform bones, and then the lateral is the lateral most of the cuneiform bone, but it's in the middle of the foot. The lateral bone is the cuboid, okay? And it articulates with metatarsal number 4 and 5. Lateral cuneiform articulates with metatarsal number 3, and then the medial and intermediate articulate with metatarsals number 1 and 2. Metatarsal number 1 is digit number 1, which makes the big toe, okay? So talus, calcaneus, calcaneum, either way is fine, navicular, medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, cuboid. Is there a mnemonic to help us with this? Of course there is. Is it silly? Of course it is. The circus needs more interesting little clowns. Okay, so the for talus, circus, navicular, more intermediate, or sorry, more interesting and little. It doesn't cover the cuneiform. Okay, and then clowns for cuboid. Okay, so one mistake people make is they mix up the navicular and the cuboid. The navicular is a short bone, and it's not anything like a cube. Okay, the cuboid is still not like a cube, but it's more like the same height and width. Okay, the navicular is very short and wide. The navicular comes with the 3 cuneiforms. Okay, so hopefully that'll help you keep those straight. And then we get to the rest of the bones of the foot. Metatarsals, number 1 through 5. Proximal phalanges, 1 through 5. Distal phalanges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, of course, digits 2 through 5 have intermediate phalanges. Okay, here, 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 here. Kind of hard to tell on this, but there you go. There are 2 sesamoid bones on the base of that big toe joint, and there are muscles that actually attach to those sesamoid bones. And we'll talk about that when we get to the muscles. So same organization here that we have in the hand. The number 1 digit only has 2 phalanges. All the others have 3 phalanges. So just remember tarsals, metatarsals, and then phalanges. I think one of the most common mistakes is that people say these are phalanges. Okay, remember there's metatarsals first and then phalanges. Okay, so those are those little sesamoid bones on the bottom of that big toe joint. And then I promised you there would be arches. There's a medial and a lateral longitudinal arch. The medial arch is usually higher. And it goes from the joint between the metatarsal and the phalange to the base of the calcaneus. Okay, and if you stood all day and your feet hurt a lot, it's because this arch has been flattened all day. It hurts the muscles, but also because your calcaneus has been pressing into the ground and there's just some muscles and mostly just skin between this calcaneus and the ground. There's the lateral longitudinal arch there. And then there is also a transverse arch. So here are the cuneiform bones. So we've split the foot here, okay? And we're looking this way, I guess. Yes, thank you, this way. So the foot is not flat from the medial to lateral side. It's actually arched that way as well. And all of that flattens out as you walk to absorb some of the shock of your foot landing. Okay, so for those of you who are artistically inclined, these are the markings that help artists like draw feet. Okay, and there they all are. Okay, and this is just someone drew on an actual ankle where the medial malleolus is, a little tubercle on the navicular, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about these tendons that run along the foot. All right, things that can go wrong. Bunion is where the first metatarsophalangeal joint becomes malformed and sticks out medially. Pes cavus is excessive foot arches. It's opposite of pes planus, which is flat feet, not enough arches. Club foot is where the feet don't develop correctly during fetal development. It can usually be straightened with braces and splinting, and most kids born with club feet will actually walk perfectly normally. And then stress fractures are just fractures of the bone from repeated stress. So there's your bones of the foot, and this is what a bunion looks like on an x-ray. That's my foot, and you can see that there is this big space between the number 1 and the number 2 MP joints, whereas they should be right next to each other like this. So that is a big old bunion. All right, so we've got talus, calcaneus, navicular, medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, cuboid, metatarsals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember that the 5th has this big tubercle on it that makes kind of that bump in the middle of your lateral foot. Proximal phalanges, intermediate phalanges, and distal phalanges. And that is the end of the appendicular skeleton.